to Grenada and the rest of the world. On this, the 24th day of September 2019, George Grant saying welcome to today's edition of, what do you call it? Gudday Grenada. Yeah, Gudday Grenada. We have a new winner this morning. First up, Mr. Chester Simon. Well, congratulations, Mr. Simon. It's about time. Yes, sir. He's stayed up all night. Stayed up all night waiting to go. Ding. Well, it paid off. And he's beaten, get this, man, he's beaten Anthea Rello. She falls into the second place this morning. Hazel Ferguson comes in third. And a good friend, you know, he's struggling. Peter is struggling. He'll be back. He'll be back. Yes, sirree. Good to see you all. Who else is there? Bernard Gilbert. Oh, and it's Broko Duncan. I hope I'm pronouncing this properly. It's ITZBROKO. It's Broko? It's Broko Duncan. Where did you get that name? Africa? Good to see you anyway, sir. Anthony the Rig says, first person to share the live, me. Well, he was not the first to log on, but he's the first to share the live, which we do appreciate. Thank you so much, Anthony. Kipling Francis is also saying good morning and sending God's blessings as well. Usually Kipling says share, but he ain't doing that this morning because Anthony beat him to it. Peter Belfont is also saying good morning. Good to see you guys. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's take a look at the rundown, see what we got cooking here for you this morning. Once again, Mr. Ray Roberts is at it. He would normally be coming in here on a Tuesday morning, but he's not because he does have another very important engagement, and he's one of those people who likes to fulfill his obligations and stick to his engagement, so he's not going to be in here this morning. However, Ray did a piece which I'm going to share with you this morning. Interesting piece. I published it on the GRENADABROADCAST.com website, and shortly thereafter, man, a whole lot of people picked it up and started sharing it all over the place. It is captioned, "Government must pay Ms. Bain-Thomas forthwith." Yeah. Gemma Bain-Thomas has been owed money, which the court says she should have. And still, the government is dragging its feet. And it's not just Ms. Bain-Thomas. There's a whole list of people who won cases against the government, still haven't received a penny. And only last night, somebody was reminding me that, what about the news that came out from Jimmy Bristow? Remember we did an interview with Jimmy, maybe a couple of months ago, which said that for people who are owed money by government and have not been paid, they now have a recourse. They can grab some of the assets of the government. Remember that? Well, he won that case, but I'm not sure that that has been brought into legislation at this point in time, so we'll have to wait and see what happens. We're going to follow that one for you. I should also tell you that this morning we're not going to be bringing you the national report. The reason for that, as you're about to find out, we have a whole ton of stuff. The piece that Ray wrote is fairly lengthy. And then, remember only yesterday morning, I had a young man by the name of Earl Maitland sitting here with me. And we were talking about NADMA. They're probably the most talked about agency in town today. Well, one of the things we mentioned was the fact that we had not seen a list of emergency shelters. And I mentioned that the night before, I had sent another email to NADMA requesting, please, let me have the list of emergency shelters, even though we're well into the second half of the hurricane season. Guess what, pilgrims? Lo and behold, on my computer here, an email showed up yesterday with the list of emergency shelters. So I'm hoping that the others, like I mentioned to you on yesterday morning, GBN told me they had not received theirs. On, I think it was Saturday, the New Today had not received theirs. And so I realized, you know, it's not just me. Well, I hope that GBN and the New Today, and in fact, all the other media houses and social media outfits have now received their list of emergency shelters. It is crucially important to us. Don't want to have another storm or hurricane breathing down our necks and then find out we ain't no place to go. All right? We're also going to take a look at a very brief look at a recognition ceremony. Apparently, the RGPF has decided to pay tribute to the people who came to the assistance of those who were aboard that bus that ran off the carronage and into the water. And the RGPF is going to be doing something to recognize these folks. We'll tell you a little bit about that. And then, this morning, Lord, 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 please let it work this morning. On Sunday, I tried to play a piece for you from a lady by the name of Amanda Jack, captioned, Modern Day Grenada Shares Biblical Similarities. We didn't get it on Sunday because we had to deal with Tropical Storm Karen. So we said, okay, we'll run that yesterday morning, Monday morning. We had this thing all queued up to go, and then when I went, iPad decided, I ain't playing that this morning. So, last night, we queued it up again. And this morning, Mr. iPad, let me tell you, if you don't play that this morning, knuckle. Yeah. So we hope to play that this morning. Very interesting little piece. Gonna share that with you in just, well, I would say about 20 to 10 or thereabouts this morning, about half an hour or so from now. Let me take another quick look and see who was on there with us this morning before I move into Ray Roberts' piece. John is chiming in. First of all, John Wellington is saying good morning to all you lovely people out there. John Newsonek says, late on parade, but here now. Well, he's here. That's all that matters. Peter Belfont saying good morning to you guys, and so is Claude Putner. He says it's a glorious day. Man, boy, you're absolutely right about that, Claude. Just beautiful day. You know, you wouldn't, when you take a look outside right now, you wouldn't imagine that just 2 days ago we had a tropical storm breathing down our necks. Benedict is saying, terrific Tuesday. Coylan Nash is listening. Mosquito Man Leroy Fedrick says, good morning to you, Mr. Grant. Keep talking the things and making Grenada a better place. Yeah, man, we're trying. We're trying. We're going to do our very best. Samantha McFarlane is saying good morning. Arthur Langine is saying good morning as well. And Lawrence Crutha. Hey, Lawrence, you're becoming a regular boy. When are we going to see you first to log on? Tomorrow? Don't go to sleep tonight. You keep the computer handy, or your iPad, or your iPhone, or whatever. Get ready to beat the likes of Hazel and Pedro and Jester and everybody else. Now, Peter Bishop says, read the matter with Jimmy Bristol. The government has since appealed and asked for a stay. Therefore, the judgment cannot take effect until this appeal is heard. So, another delay. What's new, Pedro? But thanks for the heads up. Peter Belfont says, George, this might be grandma at work, not Nadma. Yeah, I've heard some really interesting names for Nadma out there. So he goes on to say, Peter goes on to say, so this is a caring government? Is the list of shelters an NNP trophy that no one must touch? I don't know. It bothered me on Monday when I heard that while those of us in the media were having a tough time getting that list, I understand that the person who actually sent something to me was Earl himself. He found it on the NNP Youth Arms website. Yeah, and it was this year's list. So you go figure. John Nosy says, Peter Bishop, and they will keep appealing. They will keep appealing till they are out of office. Okay, folks. Okay. Let's get down to business here. Here's the piece that Ray wrote and which was published on the website. You can go check it out yourself. It is captioned, Government must pay Ms. Bain-Thomas forthwith. And I quote, the ultimate humiliation of a worker or person is to deprive that person of their legitimate income. And it ought to be considered a criminal act when it is done by the government of the day. Equal to the crime are we, the members of society, and in particular, the social partners which remain silent, ignoring the social and economic impact on that individual. One such case involves the former cabinet secretary, Gemma Bain-Thomas, who was removed from the payroll in August of 2018 and is yet to receive compensation in spite of a court ruling awarding her compensation. What a serious indictment and violation of a worker's basic human rights by the said government, which is supposed to provide for all the people. Undoubtedly, a demonstration of the power of the NNP government to inflict pain, real pain, on anyone whom it perceives in a different light. To reflect on the Bain-Thomas scenario, she spent 30 years in the public service, working her way up the ladder to the highest office in the service, that of cabinet secretary. The change of government following the 2013 general elections brought about Ms. Bain-Thomas being put on special assignment as head of public service reform, and then subsequently removed from the public service, secured post to a politically created executive director of anti-money laundering and combating the financing of terrorism commission, headed by her junior. The rules of the public service forbid a junior officer to manage a senior officer. The matter went as far as to the OECS Court of Appeal, which ruled in its judgment of September 22nd, 2017, that Bain-Thomas was unconstitutionally removed from her post. The court awarded her compensatory damages, and former acting Attorney General Sir Lawrence Joseph signed the agreement representing government. The High Court, in a judgment on March 19th, granted vindictory compensation. Okay? As a former member of the leadership of the Public Workers Union, I'm disappointed that this important issue of economic abuse of a member and senior public officer was not given great attention. Allowing Prime Minister Mitchell to get away with another violation of workers' rights. However, of greater concern is the fact that in the Prime Minister's cabinet, which is made up of 6 women, absolutely no one seems interested in having this matter settled. What a shame that women in top leadership positions do not see the legitimate plight of a fellow woman as an urgent priority. It is a poor reflection on the quality of social leadership of the current crop of Grenadian women politicians in high office. On a daily basis, Ms. Bain-Thomas has a family to support and social and economic needs like the women in the Cabinet of Ministers. The office of Head of State is held by a woman, Governor General Dame Cecile Grenada. Her office played a role in the Bain-Thomas transfer and is aware of the legal court rulings and her termination from the public service. She must now use her influence to see to it that that matter becomes a closed chapter. The government of Dr. Mitchell cannot justify its failure to compensate Bain-Thomas. As Prime Minister and ministers, they all authorized their efficient compensation at the end of their electoral term in Parliament in 2018, collecting hundreds of thousands of dollars. The highest court has ruled, and Bain-Thomas must now be compensated. For many, Dr. Mitchell is immune from making blunders, regardless of how glaring the evidence. Even those who call themselves born-again Christians ignore evidence and defend and justify their leaders' interest. The NNP government's grave injustice to Bain-Thomas is sinful, and the silence of unions, the Grenada Chamber of Industry and Commerce, Conference of Churches, Evangelical and Seventh-day Conferences, which are all part of the social partners group, must end. They owe it to the service of mankind and to the case, and in the case of Christian leaders, to Jesus Christ himself. Pay Ms. Bain-Thomas forthwith. That, pilgrims, is the text of a piece which was published on Grenada Broadcast last night. Go check it out. Or not yet last night, yesterday. Go check it out. Okay? Before I get to the emergency shelters, let me see here. John says, re the NADMA shelters. What do you have to show your party membership card to get in? I don't know. You know, John, I know you're being funny, but the way things are going in this country today, don't let it surprise you. Paley Darbo. Paley Darbo says, good morning. I have followed Ray to GBN for today. I have followed Ray to GBN. Is Ray on GBN? I don't know. Okay. Now, let's get down to the list of emergency shelters. In the parish of St. George, You may use the Cherry Hill Community Center, the Fontenoy Community Center, the Mount Morris Anglican School, the Mount Morris SDA Church, Seventh-day Adventist Church, Uganda Martyrs RC School, that's in Happy Hill, the Happy Hill Secondary School, New Hampshire Methodist Church, New Hampshire Community Center, Constantine Methodist School, and number 10, the J.W. Fletcher Catholic Secondary School. 11, Woburn Methodist School, Marianne Prototype Shelter and Community Center, the Montooth Maranatha SDA Church, the Springs Open Bible Church, Anglican High School, St. Joseph's Convent in St. George, St. Mary's Junior School, St. Paul's Government School, Vendham RC School, Grenada Boys Secondary School, Grand Anse Baptist Church. It says Baptiste, but I think they probably meant the Baptist Church. The Caliste Government School, Boca Secondary School, Bethel Methodist Church Hall, the St. Joseph's Catholic Primary School, that's in Montjulu, the Bolio SDA Church. Okay, so those are the 26 shelters that are available in the parish of St. George. Now, parish of St. John, Black Bay, excuse me, I'm getting choked up about this. I'm so happy to have the list. I'm getting all choked up. I'm sorry. The Black Bay Anglican Church, Concord SDA Church, Mount Granby SDA Church, St. Rose Modern Secondary School, the St. John's Roman Catholic School, Florida SDA Church, the St. John Christian Secondary School. So there's 7 in St. John. There's only 1 in St. Mark, and that's the Moran Community Center. All right? Then we move on to St. Patrick. St. Patrick's Anglican School, Rose Hill Seventh-day Adventist Church, Rose Hill Development Center, the River Sally SDA Church, McDonald College, Mount Rose SDA Church, Mount Rich Preschool, Snell Hall SDA Church, St. Patrick's RC School, and number 10, the Sauters SDA Church. 10 in St. Patrick. All right? Big parish, St. Andrew. Let's see here, 23 minutes after the hour. The Sacred Heart Catholic School, that's the Tivoli RC. St. Mary's RC School, that's in Lafayette. Pearls Apostolic Deliverance Church, Paraclete Government School. Mirabeau Seventh-day Adventist Church, the Mirabeau Pentecostal Church, La Poterie Seventh-day Adventist Church, Holy Innocents Anglican School, it says Mount Longe, L-O-U-N-G-E. I think it's pronounced Mont Longe, SDA Church. The New Testament Church in Birch Grove, Paradise SDA Church, Richmond SDA Church, Soubise SDA Church, the St. Joseph's Convent in St. Andrew Anglican Secondary School, the St. Joseph's RC Chapel, that's in Pomrose, Union Community Center, Namakan Community Center, the Holy Cross RC School, Bel Air Government School, and the Harford Village Community Center. Hey, that's not too far from where I grew up. So there are 22 out there in St. Andrew. Let's move on to St. David. Corinth Community Center, the Faith Pentecostal Tabernacle, St. David RC School, St. Joseph's RC School in Pomrose, St. Martin de Port RC School, and that's in Crowshoe. The Wester Hall Seventh-day Adventist Church, and the Wester Hall Secondary School. So 7 in St. David. Carriacou. Hey, John. In Carriacou. Bogles Community Center. Dover Government School. Harveyvale Government School. And the Lestaire Rosary School. And finally, in Petit Martinique, so there are 4 in Carriacou. In Petit Martinique, there are 2. Petit Martinique RC Church and the Petit Martinique RC School. So all told, according to this list here, 79 shelters are now available. Folks, I am so happy to finally be able to sit here and give you the list of shelters. It took a close encounter with the first storm of the season before that list came out. Pathetic, pathetic. But thankfully, we were spared. Karen turned out to be more of a non-event than anything. Okay, let me get back here to social media. Peter Belfont says, George, I always tell people that there are 3 dependencies of Carriacou. So, excuse me, 3 dependencies of Grenada. But we only hear of 2, Carriacou and Petit Martinique. But it should read Grenada, Carriacou, Petit Martinique, and Delay. and Delay. The rationale? Quite too often that there is delay in almost every strata of the society. Just take, for instance, the list of emergency shelters. You know, again, Peter, I'm sure you're being humorous here, but it's pathetic because we're talking about people's lives. People's lives. Despite all the rhetoric about how much we're doing for our people. But it's a good thing. Grenada is fast awakening. Yvonne Joseph says, good morning, George and friends. It is a crime and a shame what the Mitchell-led government is doing to Ms. Bain-Thomas. Yeah. Yvonne, the longest rope has an end. Be patient. John Noseyneck says, don't worry, George, I have a storeroom with 1 window and 1 door, with water and with water and power. Okay, so I know where I'm going should any storms come our way. Thanks a lot, John. 28 minutes after the hour. All right, let's take a little break here. And, hold on, just one more thing before I go to the break. I mentioned the recognition ceremony. The Royal Grenada Police Force will hold a recognition ceremony honoring members of the public for their heroic actions on Friday, the 20th of September. The ceremony will be held at Police Headquarters Conference Room, commencing at 9 a.m. Okay? Now, notice a couple of things about this. This is going to be held on Friday, the 20th, according to this release here, the 20th of September. Hold on a sec. Hold on a sec. Let me pull up my calendar here. 20th of September. Sorry. Is when the incident happened. That's the day that the bus ran off into the waters of Le Carénage, and that person's going to have to wait. Please, please, please. You're going to have to wait. Now, notice that the release does not say when this recognition ceremony is going to be held. I quote here, the ceremony will be held at Police Headquarters Conference Room commencing at 9 a.m. Today, tomorrow, December 25th, Christmas Day, I don't know. Anyhow, it's nice to know that they're going to do something, but be even better if we had an idea of when. Pele Darbo says, only one emergency center in St. Mark. God forbid if the folks in Duquesne, Waltham, etc. have to be evacuated. Yeah, Pele, I understand the frustration, but Pele, let's look on the positive side. At least there's one. Better yet, Pele, at least we now have a list of shelters. Okay, I understand. I'm not insensitive. I understand. Let's be thankful for small mercies. Glenn Andrew Mark is saying good morning from Michigan. Break time, folks, and then we'll come back with Amanda Jack.
Because your vehicle is a necessity, being roadworthy is critical. Hubbard's Motor Department introduces its new tire and battery sales and service outlet located at Building Supplies Compound in Grand Anse, close to the Sugar Mill Roundabout. Available are a wide range of competitively priced tires, maintenance-free batteries, oils and lubricants. Keeping in mind your busy schedule, this outlet is equipped to provide you with fast and reliable service. Simply drive in and you'll be delighted with your service experience. For more information, contact 440-2087. Hubbard's, quality service, affordable prices.
I'm always on the move. Training, traveling, competing. So it's good to know I have Co-op Bank in the palm of my hand.
Introducing e-banking, one of many customer convenience services from Grenada Cooperative Bank. And there's more to come.
It's swift, simple, and secure.
Welcome home.
You don't know how many hurricanes will be coming this season, so you need to be prepared. At Hubbard's Hardware and Building Supply Departments and Food Fair Supermarkets, everything from canned foods, flashlights and batteries, to plywood, tarpaulin, lanterns, roof repair kits, water tanks, etc. are available. For over 90 years, we've helped you prepare for and recover from storms. Hubbard's Hardware, Food Fair Supermarkets, and the Grenadian General Insurance, an integral part of your hurricane preparedness plan.
We are honored to partner with the Grenada Schools, Inc., the Ministry of Education, and the Caliste Government School in providing this library. GCPI program put $120,000 or 66% of the cost of the library. But it's not an investment that is intended to bring a financial return. It is an investment in the human capital of our youth in Grenada.
GRENLEC has shown us their seriousness about partnership, their seriousness about education, and their seriousness about nation building. That local partnership tells our major donors that Grenada is interested.
We have got a big vision at Grenada Schools. We believe that what we can do is, through literacy, have the most literate country in the Caribbean. We are very happy that you got this gift from ourselves and from GRENLEC.
We see this library as a unique and valuable resource. One of the best things about receiving this library is that it honors and recognizes the efforts and contributions of a company like GRENLEC and Grenada Schools Incorporated.
Since 1994, GRENLEC shareholders have invested over $22 million This has been invested in the communities throughout Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. We hope this library will serve the students and school well for many years to come.
Alrighty, folks. I don't think I've ever met this lady. However, she spends an awful lot of time. I became aware of her through the work she's doing on Facebook. A young lady, I understand that she's a lecturer at one of our colleges, and she's a believer, and she studies the Bible an awful lot. And she recently did, sometime this past week, she did a study into the book of Kings and came across a lot of similarities with what she sees happening here in our beautiful little island today. So she did a presentation which is up on her Facebook page, and she also published it on my personal page, George Grant. And I thought, wow, 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 these are really, really similar stories. I mean, what happened in the Book of Kings and what's happening here in Grenada right now. So in a very simplistic way, she tried to explain those similarities. This piece I'm going to run for you, runs for about 22, 23 minutes. Check it out.
The nation will be torn out of the hands of Rehoboam and split into two, a national breakup. Now remember again, the people who are serving Rehoboam, the people in Rehoboam's time, are the people who were there working hard during Solomon's time, ensuring that Israel had become a prosperous nation. She was economically booming. She had never been so good. The years of David and Solomon were probably some of the best years for Israel because the nation was united. And you know, a nation united, what that nation is able to do. It can spread its reach. It can accomplish great feats. Things are happening, but it all seems to be centered around the palace. The king's name is growing. The king's riches is being accumulated. The king's wealth is growing. He has this great big house, but the people are under some heavy burden. And so in verse 4, the people said to the king, "Your father made our yoke heavy." Your father made our yoke heavy. Now a yoke is something used to bind two animals together. Or the yoke is also a symbol of a burden. So the father, your father, they were saying Solomon had put a heavy burden on us, a heavy burden in the form of taxes. God had warned them, if you go back to 1 Samuel chapter 8, that any king they had was going to tax them much. So Solomon had put some heavy taxes on the people. Taxes because he needed the revenue to build the temple, because he needed the revenue to build his home and the other buildings that he created. So the people is saying, your father made our yoke heavy. Now therefore lighten the heavy yoke which he put on us, and we will serve you. Now lighten it. Take some of this burden from us. Take off some of these taxes. Take off some of this weight on us. And what will happen? We are going to serve you. We will be your servant. You can use us. You can ask us to do whatever it is, and we will do it. Whatever duty you've given us, whatever you ask of us, we will do it, as long as you take some of this burden from us. Because really, when you're too heavily burdened, can you move? Can you walk when you have a huge weight on your back? When you're carrying this load on your shoulder, how fast can you move? Can you bend? Can you do what you're supposed to? You can't. It's really hard to live with a heavy burden on your shoulder. So the people is saying to Rehoboam, yes, we recognize that you're king, but you now have the power. We have already given. We have already made huge sacrifices. We have already done so much for this nation, for this country. Can you now take some of this weight from us? And we promise you that we're going to serve you if you do that. And so Rehoboam, as a good king, as a good leader, he said, give me some time to think. Give me some time to think. And then come back. I'll give you my answer then. I can't answer you right now. I can't tell you if I could take this burden off you right now. Isn't that just like our situation? For some years, we've been carrying this extra heavy weight on us, extra taxes, extra burdens, and now the people are asking, please take this off of us, take some of it off of us. You don't need to take off all, but take off some, lighten some of the load, give us a little release, and if you do, we will serve you, we will be yours, we will be your servants. Whatever you ask of us, we will do, but all we need for you to do right now is to take off some burden from us. That's a Grenadian cry. That's a national cry. You're hearing it a lot of places in this nation, that the people need some of the burdens on them to be lifted. They need some of the things that are on them to be lifted. We need some of these taxes to be removed or even to be loosed. Just like the people of Israel, we've made huge sacrifices. It's on the record books. We made huge sacrifices to get us to where we are, to have the name that we have. And now all the people are asking for is for a little release. And so Rehoboam went to his counselors. And that makes sense. Whenever something comes to you like that, a big question like that comes to you, you're supposed to seek some counsel. You're supposed to seek some counsel. So the first place he went was the elders who had served his fathers. And that's wonderful, because these were men of wisdom. These were men who had guided Solomon and whom probably had guided David in the days of prosperity, in the days of peace. They had given him counsel over which war to fight and who not to fight, and what to do and what not to do. So these were men who knew what they were talking about. These were men who had a relationship with God, who heard God. This was not the ordinary person you'd find on the street who didn't know. He went to some people who knew things, and listen to what they told him. If you will be a servant to these people today and serve them and answer them and speak good words to them, then they will be your servants forever. That is verse 7. If you will be a servant to these people. Now, if you're Rehoboam as the king, you'll probably think the people are meant to serve you because you're king. They're supposed to bow down to you. They're supposed to worship you. They're supposed to do whatever it is you're telling them. But the counselors are saying, if you will be a servant to them, if you will be a servant to them. A servant is a person who performs duties for others. So if you would perform a duty to them, if you would do good for them, Jesus said, the greatest among us is the servant, the one who serves. On Passion Thursday, Jesus went down and he washed the feet of his disciples to show that he, as Christ, the Messiah, that he was serving them. So the elders were in place to say, if you will serve them today, so you're serving them today, but look at this, if you serve them today and give good words to them, what good word? That you are going to lighten their load, that you are going to remove the burdens, that you are going to reduce the taxes, that you are going to recognize that, yes, they've made sacrifices over the years so that you could have what you have, so now allow them to have a little bit of something for themselves. If you speak good words to them, then they will be your servants forever. You check the trade-off, you serve them today and they will serve you forever. Serve them today so that they could serve you forever. So what you do in this day called today, it will impact what is going to happen in your forever. How you answer the people today, whether you accept or you reject what they've offered to you today, it will determine how they're going to treat with you forever. Which is better, The forever or the today? Which is more, the forever or the today? It seems simple enough to me that serve them today. You're serving them for one day, and they're going to serve you for the rest of your life and their lives. Isn't that a sacrifice worth making? Isn't that a request worth answering in the positive? Isn't that something good enough, worthy of the king bowing down to? Because they have served David, they had served Solomon, and now they're going to be serving you, provided that you can serve them one day. And if you check David, David was a servant king. It's what made David such a wonderful king. He served. He served Solomon. He served Saul, sorry. Even when Saul was trying to kill him, he never lost sight of the fact that as long as Saul is king, that he is Saul's servant. Perspective, attitude determines your forever, determines your tomorrow. Whether you prosper or you fall down is determined by your perspective and your attitude today. How are you looking at people? How are you viewing those that are under you? Are they there just to serve you, to wash your feet, to do whatever you ask of them? Or are you seeing some way or finding some way that you could serve those you're asking to serve you? The greatest leader must first be a servant. Ask Mandela. Ask Maurice Bishop, Fidel Castro, those we've raised on high. They served until they were elevated. And then when they were elevated, they never forgot that they served first, that they are a servant to the people. The best leader is a leader, a person who sees himself as one who serves the people. That's a lesson Rehoboam had to learn the hard way. So the wise counselors told him that, serve the people. Just today, accede to their demands, give in just a little bit, bend just a little bit. But Rehoboam didn't want to hear that. So he went to some younger folks. And you know the young people, they're not as seasoned. They haven't been through as much trials and as much testings. They haven't seen as much as the older folk. So they weren't able to give him an answer of weight, of value, of import. They said to him that what you have to do is not lighten their load, it's to make it heavier. Put more burdens on them. They're crying out. No, just wait, they're going to be screaming later. Put more on them. They have 5 pounds on their shoulder carrying now, and they think that it's heavy. Nah, put an extra 10 pounds more. That's what the younger folks said. People who lacked experience, who lacked learning, who lacked wisdom, who lacked spending time with the Lord. Maybe that's why Paul told Timothy that do not put a novice as the head of any church. When you create your churches, do not put a novice. Do not put someone who's just gotten saved, because they haven't lived enough yet. They haven't learned enough yet. They haven't been through enough yet. They haven't been tested enough yet to now lead. But Solomon went to these young men, and Rehoboam went to these young men, and these young men, I believe, told Rehoboam exactly what he wanted to hear. Rehoboam wasn't concerned about being a servant. Rehoboam had grown up in the palace. He had seen what Daddy had. He had lived through Daddy's time, and he got caught up in the glitz and the glamour of palace life, of court life. He had gotten probably addicted. He was intoxicated with what being king meant. And you know how long he wanted to be king, and now he is king, and the people are telling him this kind of things. Rehoboam couldn't deal with that. So he went and he got some people to speak to him what he wanted to hear. We have to be mindful of our counselors. As leaders, we have to be mindful of whose voices we listen to, whose counsel we take. What are they saying to us? Is it going to lead to our prosperity? Is it going to lead to our happiness? Or is it going to lead to our demise? And we have to answer that question truly, honestly. Sometimes we need people to say to us, no. Sometimes we need people to say to us, don't go there. Sometimes we need people to tell us the things we do not want to hear, because that is the very thing that will save our life. That is the very thing that will save our future, safeguard our legacy. The people who are not going to say no. Too many leaders want to be surrounded by yes men. Too many leaders want to be surrounded by people who talk like them, speak like them, act like them. If they do not challenge you, how are you going to grow? If you're not tested, how are you going to mature? If everybody says yes and everybody agrees with what you're saying, what you're doing, how do you know when you're going wrong? And we're human. We are going to go wrong. Psalm 1 verse 1 says, "Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stands in the path of the sinners, nor sits in the seat of the scornful." Continuing on verse 2, "But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law he meditates day and night. He shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that brings forth its fruit in its season, whose leaf also shall not wither, and whatever he does shall prosper." Rehoboam would have been good served if he had read his grandfather's words, if he had remembered the things that his grandfather has been saying and preaching. These young people were not out for Rehoboam, they were out for themselves. That's what usually happens with these yes people. They're not thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves. How is it going to benefit me? How is this going to serve me? How is this going to keep me? How is this going to provide for me? All they're thinking of is themselves. And as a leader, you have not just yourself to think about, but the people under you. And so if your yes men are telling you to do evil to the people under you, you should be able to tell them no. But Rehoboam, listen to the voice of his yes men and his yes women, his clique. And he told them exactly what, told the people exactly what those young men said. Proverbs 12 verse 18 says, "There is one who speaks rashly like the thrust of a sword." Excuse me a bit. "There is one who speaks rashly like the thrust of a sword, but the tongue of the wise brings healing." But the tongue of the wise brings healing. Healing. Our nation is greatly in need of healing. A nation divided. Israel was united at this point in time. But because of the rash words of Rehoboam, what happened? The nation split apart. It tore. It broke into two, and Rehoboam was left with the smallest piece. But if he had spoken the words of wisdom, then the nation would have been healed, and the nation would have remained the same. But then there is a prophecy of God in the background. Matthew 11. Let's turn there. Matthew 11, 28 to 30. Matthew 11, 28 to 30. Jesus speaking, he says, "Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Rehoboam thought just the opposite. Jesus said, "Come, and I will lighten your yoke. I will make your burdens easy," which is what the people were looking for. They were looking for a yoke that was light. They were looking for easy burdens. They wanted what was on them, the oppression that was on them, to be released. And Rehoboam says, "No, I'm going to put more. That's a note to us as Grenadians, Caricunians, and Petit Martinicans. That if you're feeling burdened, if you're feeling oppressed, if the yoke on you is too heavy to bear, that the first place you run to is Jesus. Jesus said, I will give you rest. I will give you peace. I will exchange the yoke that you have for mine, and mine is light and mine is easy. You will not have to feel the burden. For Samuel 8 again, when they rejected God for a king, they chose a path that would lead them to this oppression. They chose a path that would lead to these heavy burdens, these heavy yokes being placed upon them. But we have the option to go back to the King. We have this option to go back to the Lord of Lords. We have it as a nation within us, our power, our will, to say, Lord, we are going to serve you. Lord, we are going to take your yoke upon you, because the word declares that the commands of the Lord, they are not burdensome. So, Rehoboam said, no, I'm not going to lighten the load. No, I'm going to give you more. And that's exactly what's going on in this nation. After sacrifice, after sacrifice, after sacrifice for many years, when we're thinking that we're going to get an ease up, when you're thinking you're going to get some burdens being removed, what do you hear? Your NIS is going to go up by 2%, and pretty soon your NHS is going to come, which is going to put some more burdens upon you. We're crying out for relief. This nation is crying out from under the burdens they've been placed under. They're crying out from under the yokes. And rather than release coming, rather than some being taken off, what is coming, according to those in leadership, is more. What is coming is something heavier. They're going to add something on top of what's there without removing some of what's already there. What do you think is going to happen? Every day something else happens in the news. Every day something else comes out, and the people are starting to talk. The people are starting to murmur. The people are getting mad and angry. If you're reading some of the Facebook posts and checking some of the comments under it, you realize we're a nation who's getting fed up and who's getting angry. There are people who are speaking of 1979 revolution and people who are talking about revolt. Things cannot continue as they are. Just as it was in 1 Kings 12, the people were saying to King Rehoboam, things cannot continue as they are. It's too much for us. It's gotten too heavy. We can't move, we can't advance, we can't prosper. So now please take some out of us. We have already given you much. Take a little bit from us and we will continue to serve. It's not that they had a problem working. It's not that they had a problem doing what the king had asked of them to do. All they're saying is, it's a bit much. Take some off and we will continue to work for you. Aren't you hearing that cry in Grenada right now? Aren't you hearing that on social media and on the radio programs? Aren't you hearing that wherever people congregate? Aren't you hearing it at all from our nation's people, that the people are increasingly getting fed up? That the stories, the news stories are starting to have an impact on people. Cell phone gate, the issue with the police officers, now the stuff with the journalists. Aren't you feeling it? Aren't you feeling it, that we're becoming a nation of people who are fed up, and when people get fed up, they do things that they wouldn't normally do? Aren't you seeing the signs? You know, since I got this word, I sat on it a little bit and I prayed on it a little bit. I even fasted. And I've been waiting for things to turn better, but instead it's becoming worse. And so I said, you know, I have to say this. I have to let people know that this is happening, that this is coming. Because check the news, it's not getting better. Grenada is not moving in a right direction. Last week I was reading an article where it says the CDB was downgrading our economic forecast. That we're not prospering, we're not going to prosper and boom as much as we thought. And if we're not, and the yoke remain that heavy on the people, what do you think the people are going to do? How do you think the people are going to react? What are they going to say? What do they leave for the ordinary man on the street? And that's my worry. That if things are not going as well as we think, what are we going to do? Especially when 2020 is around the corner, and in 2020 we have 2 new things to deal with. If it's already too much for us and they put on us what they plan to, what's going to happen?
Wow, 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 wow. Folks, thought-provoking, I would say, at the least, thought-provoking. Young lady, continue to do the work that you're doing. I'm going to read some comments that were posted here on social media, but just before I do, let me say this. You know, there are a lot of youngsters like her in this country who share those views. But there are also a lot of other youngsters who are just concerned about what they see happening here. And their solution is to form another political party. Another political party. Yeah. Folks, I don't believe that political parties are going to solve our problems. What this lady, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I sense that she is advocating a change in mindset, turning to God, turning to God. Keep up the good work, Amanda, and I do hope that someday I get to meet you face to face. Now, let me share some of the comments here on Facebook. First of all, Kipling Francis says, every sour bread has its sour cheese. It is so sad to see. Truth is becoming one of man's greatest enemies. Everybody thinks he or she is right, with no regards for the facts. Anthea says, this is better than the national report. Thanks, George. This applies all over. Thank you, Anthea. Here's an interesting one from Peter Belfont. Peter says, for today, forever or for today? Now, if you go to the New Testament, you will see the prodigal son has a wayward perspective of life and living. Look how the brother of the prodigal son reacted when the fattest bull was killed to welcome home that wandering son. Amanda Jack is spot on with her in-depth exposition. Would the government, upon hearing this, be upset with this wonderful woman? Very thoughtful indeed. Peter, I think she's watching. Peter Bishop says, whoa. Juanita Charles says, good morning, and Peter Belfont goes on to say, ah boy, I believe there's a boiling point that will explode. May God help us. I believe that Amanda Jack is sending a warning as received, And if it falls on deaf ears, then we must be prepared for the consequences. Peter, that is so true, but also very scary. Scary. Here she, I thought you would be watching. There's Amanda Jack saying, George Grant, again, thanks. Amanda, God bless you, girl. It was a pleasure sharing that with my audience this morning. Rodriguez James says, I have never heard a revelation like this. Run deep. Yeah, Mr. James, yeah. I had to share it. I had to share it. Yes, George, this is the point, so says Peter. And John Nosynek says, dozens of youngsters are being trained as police. Are dozens retiring? Just asking. Okay, John. All righty, folks, it's 6 minutes after the hour. Thank you so much for hanging around there. Let's take a little break, and then I'm going to come back, and we'll wrap it up.
In our part of the world, we need to be prepared for natural disasters like storms and hurricanes, even outside of the season. I'm sure you'll agree that keeping our loved ones, homes, and businesses safe is important. So, I came up with a few quick tips to help you stay safe. First, make a family disaster plan and ensure that everyone in your household is familiar and comfortable with it. Remember to add batteries and flashlights to your emergency kit. Now, for electrical safety. Familiarize yourself with your electrical panel, as it may be necessary to switch off the power during a storm or flood. Make sure you install a transfer or isolation switch to prevent your generator feeding electricity to Grenlec's line. If trees are too close to power lines, call Grenlec at 237 for advice. By following these easy steps, you will be well on your way to being hurricane ready. Don't be caught off guard by natural disasters. Prepare now. For more information, visit grenlec.com.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try their sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
Alrighty, folks, 9 minutes after the hour. Our parting word this morning comes to you from the book of 1 Peter, chapter 4, 7 to 11. The end of all things is near. Therefore, be alert and of sober mind, so that you may pray. Above all, love each other deeply, because love covers over a multitude of sins. Offer hospitality to one another without grumbling. Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. If anyone speaks, they should do so as one who speaks the very words of God. If anyone serves, they should do so with the strength which God provides, so that in all things God may be praised through Jesus Christ. To him be the glory and the power forever and ever. Amen. On that note, my dear friends, Georgie Porgy is going to go run some errands downtown. I do wish you a great day. Hope you do have a wonderful day. Peter Belfon says, I particularly digested this morning's presentation of Gudday Grenada. Well, thank you, Peter. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow morning. And may you, too, be blessed, as same goes to everybody who's joining us this morning. God bless you, folks. God bless you, and thanks for being here.